advertising in esports is an area which seems to still be largely misunderstood by a wide spread cross-section of the esports community, including those who are doing the advertising, those who are being advertised to, and the advertisers coming into the sector, the industry, the area. Because one of the general things that you see happen repeatedly is people will proudly proclaim that they bought a product or that they've been using a certain service primarily due to it being part of a sponsorship of a player or a team or a league or a game that they like. Now, that in general is not really the way that advertising is supposed to work. I know there might actually be some people who are fans of a big sports franchise where a certain food or service sponsors that franchise, and therefore they think, well, I'm a fan of this team, so I will do that. But that's a very small margin of people who actually make the business decision, the choice to use that service or to purchase it based on that. It's a very, very small cross-section. In general, the whole point of sponsoring that franchise is to get exposure. It's not some sort of weird brand loyalty play or something along those lines. What you're trying to do is you're trying to expose to the people who are also fans of that your product. And then the notion is, if the product is good enough or you want that product, then you will then consider theirs will be in your consciousness. You'll remember I remember that team that's associated with something that's cool that I like. Therefore, I remember also that's around. So think about it this way. If Burger King sponsors the NBA, then if I buy a burger, it's because I wanted a burger, and Burger King, either I remember it exists because I saw the advert, or I see the advert and then I remember I like Burger King burgers, or I think, yeah, I like burger. I want a burger. Burger King burgers are all right. There's one that's available, and also Burger King burgers seem slightly cooler because they're associated with the NBA, which is something I like, something that I watch quite frequently, so it's seeped into my consciousness. I feel like people, when they want to buy these products, also almost have like a superstitious element where they think that if they do something to do with the product, that will somehow make the product continue to sponsor the franchise, the team, the player, whatever, and therefore keep the team, the player alive. Now, that's not really how it's going to work, is it? Like, one or two people going and buying a burger isn't going to keep Burger King sponsoring the NBA. It's going to have to be masses of people, and they're not going to be doing that based on this kind of purchasing decision. So the notion that it's cool to buy the product because it's in this area, it doesn't really work as an explicit or a conscious decision. Like, sure, it naturally might become cooler, or might be a brand that you feel like you associate with more because it's associated with something you consider cool, or you enjoy, or you find cool in a certain sense. But the idea that, isn't it cool that like Burger King's sponsoring a team now? Nah, not really. I mean, that's actually not very cool in itself. It's cool that the team gets money, but if esports is big enough that it's legitimate and that the advertising dollars spent here get to enough eyeballs and have the impact that they're supposed to have, then it's not cool. It's just a matter of fact. It's just the way that things are. You can say it's cool that the industry's in that place. I could sort of understand that. But I think people go too far with like, isn't it awesome to see like Coca-Cola's involved with this? I don't really get that entirely. I think people actually put too much fetishism on the product itself as well. And because they've seen it associated with a big thing that they consider mainstream, like the NFL, then they think it's cool that it's with the esports thing. I don't think it necessarily works that way. Now, if you see my own approach to advertising, most notably when I did the Alpha Draft commercials where I'd do my little intro or the outro with it. Now, what happened was I used to start off like everyone else, reading out copy. I used to just read the lines. I had my own way I'd written them, but I read them in a quick manner. And sometimes I tried to get through it quickly. Sometimes I threw in a little extra flourishes. And what I found was that's actually a flaw, because what you try and do there is almost describe the product. And you try to outline, here's what the product is, here's what it is, what you can do. What's funny is I found it was a lot more successful. More people watched. It seeped into people's more consciousness more, and they associated Alpha Draft, the product and service, more with me and what they liked about me more when I actually just made it more about exposure. Made sure people watched, made sure people didn't skip, made sure people listened, and that it wasn't the same every time so that they didn't tune out, etc. Instead, what I did is I made it so it wasn't about the product, because actually, if people are interested, they will get to know what the product is. And over time, they will figure it out anyway when it has a presence within your brand. So instead, I made it purely about brand exposure and associating with something cool. I even built it into my persona, the idea that I'm just into Skrilla and all that shit. I built into that, and so it made that have a certain swagger to it, just so it drew attention to the brand. And then, if someone wanted to play Fantasy Esports, then they might go and play Alpha Draft. Now, if they weren't going to play Fantasy Esports anyway, they're not going to very likely, just because of my commercial. Again, very few people are going to do that. And therefore, explaining all the details isn't really that necessary. Instead, I'm associating with what's cool about me and my brand, and then making it so that people listen. And how did I do that? Because I made the ad itself justified as entertainment in itself. Now, this is what adverts do already on television, if you think about it. They don't just say, oh, the new burger out now at Burger King. What they'll do is they'll have something in it'll be some funny twist to the thing, so you watch it for the joke, or it'll be something about like some weird effect that it has on someone, whatever they might do, or the fact that if you're really hungry, you want to eat them. They don't go about the features of the burger. They associate with something, and they try to make the ad have some entertainment value in itself. That's what I did with my advertising. This is one thing I think in esports that a lot of people who are represented by big sponsors aren't doing a good enough job of. They are reading spec. They are just having the logo there. They're not making it fun in itself. They're not making it entertaining. They're not using creativity on the ad, even though that's how you're going to get more engagement. That's how you're going to get the sponsors being much happier with you and feeling like they want to associate with your brand more, and then fans also getting the message, getting into their consciousness more and getting across to them. I mean, if I was a team, like say I was a CSGO team, okay, I'd have every week a short video. It would be like a minute long, and it would be like a cool little tip, and I'd associate it with a brand. And I'd have one of my video editors edit it up, and it wouldn't take very long, but it'd look spiffy, and it would be like, the Jack Link's beef jerky smoke of the week. Now, when I'm the one to smoke off jungle on Inferno, I throw the smoke like this, I come in, and you know what, like, whatever, it's really... There's a lot, you can really sink your teeth into that one, like a Jack Link's thing, whatever it might be, right? The idea is it has value in itself because it is a smoke you want to learn. Likewise, in League of Legends, some little tip about how to control a wave, or on this champion, here's like a concept of a build path I'm going with. Make it short, make it snappy, make it something people will watch, to keep their attention, and they just get the brand sponsor as a side product. It's not even about what Jack Link's beef jerky is and what's great about it. No, they understand the concept of beef jerky. You want to get through the people that you're associating with you, and that's something they remember just as the name of the brand, etc. And the exposure's there. Now, whether or not it's a good beef jerky is going to have to be on Jack Links. They're going to have to sort that part out. You're not selling people on the fact it's a great beef jerky. I mean, when I think of some of the great advertising campaigns in esports, is ones like this. So I think, for example, of Evil Geniuses and their HyperX videos they did for the StarCraft 2 team, like the one where Huck was like a diva, and then Idra, like, what was it? He had like a Ferrari or something. It wasn't a Ferrari. It was some sort of sports car. So yeah, they had all these ones. These were really fun. They were really funny. I mean, the ones they did within Control were great. The whole point of these was they weren't really about just the product itself. They were about the entertainment aspect, and the product was just associated with it, and that's what made it cool, because it was a cool feature, and then it had the products splash all over. So as a result, I know HyperX. That's one of the reasons why HyperX seemed, I mean, I wouldn't say it seemed super cool, because I'm not susceptible to advertising, but I certainly enjoyed the segments and was glad that they sponsored them, and that, in that sense, probably, yeah, did make me think a little bit, oh, HyperX kind of gets esports, that they were willing to be part of this. Likewise, if I was going to sponsor someone in esports right now, I'd sponsor Gambit. Because even though they don't have very many teams that are that good in their respective games, these guys have a very creative marketing team that really know how to capture your eye. They really know how to draw people in, have fun, creative concepts. I mean, a good example of a team, by the way, who really know how to get their sponsors over to you is Cloud9. Now, Cloud9 doesn't do a whole lot of the creative stuff like its knowledge, sense, etc. They maybe haven't gotten the head of the curve on that one, but this is a team where the success of the Cloud9 teams in all their games isn't as relevant because they get their players streaming enough. They make their streams entertaining. They have entertaining players who do stream, and then you watch, and then some of the brands seep in. So this works in this sense. Now, the problem in esports, the reason why this is an issue is because in the real world, the advertising people themselves are the ones who figured out all these tips and tricks and little nooks and crannies and how you get things in there, and they shape the adverts. They do it all with the people. The problem is that's because in the real world, they've had a lot of time to work in these scenarios. They've had a lot of time to learn what is going on there and how to communicate with their demographic and what the medium is like, because it's mainly television and radio they're working with. They don't know the medium of the internet and how to relate to these fans in the same way. And they don't understand esports in the same way. So in the real world, they've remained in those industries. They have long relationships. They know who is worth what and what grabs people's attention. In esports, they don't. And therefore, if people want to get esports ahead of the game and get more money themselves and more value to themselves than where esports currently is, Esports people have to be the ones who figure out how to forge those relationships, how to make them valuable in a way they wouldn't be otherwise. Like, you could have 50 people advertise Overdraft. How many of them were doing it in a way that I was doing it that brought extra value to the brand and actually made people associate in a certain way and got people interested and made people listen? How many people tuned out to another person's when they were just reading copy? So teams, in this sense, they already act as agencies anyway in terms of getting the sponsors and then relaying the money to the players. But they have to act as agencies almost as the ad agency when they go to these companies, because the companies can't really do the ads themselves in many cases. I mean, it's a reason why teams like Cloud9, Evil Geniuses have been fantastically successful in terms of business, even when there have been periods when they didn't win in terms of trophies. And I think this is a really misunderstood area pretty much across the industry, and there are a few notable exceptions, but there's a lot of people who still need to kind of get the message, get the memo, get on board with how you're actually going to advertise if you want to be in the esports industry and succeed at this point in time before big business comes in and figures it all out and kind of maps the area out.